What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today we're gonna take a deep dive into my account, looking at my units, looking at my gear, and looking at all the different teams I use for PvE and for PvP, going one by one, telling you my thought process of when I was building these teams. But yeah, so if you like the video and are excited to see more content and more great heroes, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. We will be starting the guild very, very soon. That is going to be, and I'll be putting more information about that as we get closer to the start of the new season. But yeah, super excited about that. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So how the video will play out is first, I will cover all the units. I will show you guys the gear, show you kind of my thought process for each of the units, how I like the stats that they have and stuff like that. Then we'll go to the different PvE and PvP sections, and I'll just kind of show you the teams I use for that, and we can talk about it. If for any of these it doesn't make sense why I did something a certain way, or if you want to learn more about it, or if you want to see a video about something, make sure you comment down below. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. Let's just look unit by unit. I might quickly show the gear for units that I'm really proud of. So for Sarmia, I did actually have her built in the past. I'm still reworking her. I wanted to have her on a speed build, but it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I didn't have enough speed to actually outspeed the Rylets. So I'm thinking of switching her to a crit damage set in the future, but right now that's what she has. My Ravi, which was in the Shogun tournament on Elspeth, which is a whole thing. I could talk about Elspeth's Ravi for like 20 million years and why I like it so much. I've made a full guide on Ravi, but this is my Ravi here. Really, really good equipment, really, really good stats. The only stat I really want to get higher is the crit rate, because I've lost some pretty critical fights because my Ravi didn't have a 100% crit. My Ross, strictly PvE, still getting reworked. He does okay. The effectiveness, ideally, should be a little bit higher. Should be around 65%, so he can actually land on the golem all the time. So getting a little bit of higher effectiveness. That's coming from the boots, since I did give him a new set of boots. So I'll probably have to switch the boots or the sword to give him that extra effectiveness. But very PvE. I don't use him for PvP. I do want to make a PvP one down the line, but it's pretty good. My Lilia, so again, I use a ton in PvP on a hybrid build. She's on the tankier side, but also has a little bit of crit rate to do a little bit more damage against the opponent, since if you guys know, Lilias does do damage on the S3. Gear turned out pretty good. I'm actually pretty happy with the way she functions. She's tanky and still packs a punch. Down the line, I might switch the artifact. Instead of an adamant shield, I might switch it for an Aureus, and I might switch this ring, because the effect resistance is not really doing a lot for me, and I would love this for that to have been like defense percentage, or more speed, or even a little bit more crit hit damage, right? So hopefully in the future get her a little bit better. My Kayron, who you guys know is notorious, the myth, the legend, the Kayron. He used to be my best built unit. He's not anymore. I have built other units at a higher level, but he still is slapping. It's my own personal build. It's the King Blair build. It's a hybrid speed Kayron that's able to compete with cleave teams when paired with a General Purgus or a Idol's Cheer ML Haste, and the gear is pretty poppin'. Really, really good pieces all around. There's some pieces I can improve, like this chest and this neck. Like there's places where there's definitely improvement, but overall, pretty freaking good Kayron for what I need him to do, and he really does perform for me, and I do use him very, very often. Very hard to build, and I wouldn't recommend this build. I also do have a full guide on Kayron, and you guys should go check it out. Ideally, one day get him to immunity too, because it would be really nice to have my speed Kayron on immunity, so that way he can't get stunned by Spectre T's on cleave teams. My Melissa, who I also made a full guide on, she kind of got torn apart, not because I didn't like her, it's because I didn't like using Oxlot. So that's my personal decision, but you guys can watch the full guide on her. Still trying to get as much attack and crit damage as possible. No speed, since I would use it for Oxlons. Tema, strictly for PvE. I use Celestine just because like more healing, and like I've used her a lot with that many healing units. So it's always nice. Kind of scuffed, but it's pretty good. Luna, who I'm still trying to figure out what I want her to do. Right now, she's just holding crit damage here in case I want to use her for Wyvern or for something like that. But right now, it doesn't really serve a purpose. Sigrid, who I'm actually using for Wyvern. She doesn't have an artifact, but I usually put Daydream Joker on her, and I take her to Wyvern. Crow, who's my most recent project. I still have to switch this chest, because it makes no sense for Crow to have that much crit hit damage or crit hit rate. So hopefully get something with effect resistance and with defense percentage to bump up those defensive stats a little bit more. So still a work in progress. I really do want to use him in the future, and I think he's really good. Karen, who I love for PvE, and I love the outfit. I love Karen, y'all. I freaking love Karen. She is max imprint. She has very specific gear for a Banshee 3-man. I have this artifact on her for Wyvern. So I use it for Wyvern and for Banshee, and she will be getting a video in the near future, showcasing her in both Banshee and in Wyvern, showing how good Karen can really be. But that's my Karen. Seaside, not the best Seaside in the world, but I do use it for PvP, RTA, and for Raid. Dizzy, again, PvP Dizzy, counter set Dizzy. I really like counter set Dizzy. I should try to bump up the effect resistance or give her immunity. But I'm happy with the way she is right now. She does her job pretty well. Aether, who I built for the memes and is still fully built. I still haven't found the artifact I want to give him to hold on to. But yeah, I told you guys I wasn't going to strip him of his gear, and he still has his gear. Momo, who needs a massive rework because I'm really going to be using her a lot more in the future. I need to give her an effect resistance ring. So I can get her to a 200 plus effect resistance Momo to counter the upcoming control power meta. Angelica, who used to be my Wyvern 13 team. Diani, who I'm also used a lot in tournaments. I ideally would want to get her more speed. The effect resistance is amazing. The necklace is trash though, because it has so much crit rate that is just wasted and not enough speed. So if I got a better necklace with more speed, and a little bit more in effect, and the same stats and the same speed overall, and a little bit more, just more speed, she'd be perfect. I'm actually really happy with the way her gear turned out. Just a little bit too slow, right? So a little bit more speed, and I would be super happy with my DNA, and that's why I haven't reforged this piece. Euphine, who I've never used. Charles, who I actually use a lot for Guild Wars and for other things, and we'll see that later. F. Clary, probably the unit I am the proudest of, but she will be getting stripped for Cerise. My F. Clary really carries. Amazing gear. I'm actually going to show it because it's like 21 speed. This one's 13. It could have been better, but it has such good health. 27 speed chest. This one's insane. 12 speed, so I could get more speed here, but the effectiveness and defense are really nice. And then 17 speed, and then again 30% health. Insane gear. This is probably one of the better F Claries you'll see. Justice for All, not maxed out, and of course she is fully maxed. Violet, who I use for Labby. That's it. I don't use it for anything else besides Labby. I still have to give him an artifact. Landy, who's a work in progress, who I hope to rework, but right now this is the fun build I've been trying out on her. It doesn't really work out, but it's still nice to have gear and placeholder. Pavel, who I've tried to make work several times, but I'm not a cleave player, so I can't do good work. Vivian, strictly for Banshee 13. I know she's on amazing PvP units, but right now she is just specifically for Banshee 13. Rowana, who I used to counter SSB. That's literally it. I just use her for SSB countering. A Tywin, one of my better RTA units and also my arena defense unit. Again, love him. Arrowwell, who I tried to make work and it just didn't work out. Specimen Says, who I used to use in the past a lot for my previous like pseudo cleave that I used to run. To counter RB with Bazaar, but I just wasn't happy with the damage. Watch Ashiri, who I used to use in my previous cleave, still would want to update in the future. Relolite, who needs a massive upgrade, because right now she doesn't have enough defense or effect resistance. All the other stats, like the speed, is really high, but the defense and the effect resistance are a little bit on the low side. My Apocalypse Ravi, who I do try to use pretty often in PvP, and I'm really happy with my Apocalypse Ravi, where she is right now. She does damage, she does good counters. Would love for her to be 100% crit, but we didn't quite get there, and would love for her to have a little bit more defense. But besides that, I am pretty happy with the way that she has turned out. Kali, who I still do use and still has a blue piece that's really trash, and it's probably why she's not that good. It's just that blue piece. Everything else is actually pretty good. This helmet is also not the best, but I don't have another 17 speed helmet, right? So in the future, changing this helmet, changing this chest, and changing the ring, I could get a much better Akali, but what I need her to do, she still does well. BBK, who I used to use for previous cleaving, so that's why she's ungeared. Remnant Violet, who is getting geared again in the near future on a lifesteal immunity build. You guys will be seeing that later on. Sedum, for my previous cleave, I don't use her anymore, sadly, but I did used to use her a lot in my previous cleave teams. Estene, who I use for PvE and PvP. I'm thinking of incorporating her into Guild Wars defense. Top model Luluka, one of the newest additions to my team. I love her for RTA and I love her for Arena. She does so much work. Actually has pretty insane gear on her. If I actually go through the gear, you guys will see like it's really good gear. It's the chest low roll on the crit rate, which is why we don't have 100% crit. But everything else, it's like it's hard to come by any better gear, right? So I'm happy with the way she is now. Blood Moon Haze, who's on a complete free-to-play build. I use him for Guild Wars. I use him for everything pretty much. Soul, who I've never used. CC, who is in the back burner. This is my Baiken for the one-shot team. So this is the Baiken that I use for one-shot. Of course, it's the J-Jim Joker. The Bellona, who I have to give her a chest, but I do use her actually for Lavi. So I actually do use this Bellona, but I do give her another crit damage set, just with some effectiveness to be able to hit the different raid. The Stina, who I kind of use, but I'm probably going to ungear. My Wyvern tank, this is the Purgus that I'm using. And I also use him for PvP to counter cleave in RTA. DJ Bazaar, work in progress. I definitely need to make him better because she's going to be one of the best counters to Cerise. So I really, really need him to be in a better position to counter Cerise. Assassin Cartuja, who used to be one of my arena defense units. Shadow Rose, who I don't use anymore. Tenna, work in progress, work in progress, work in progress. Furious, I actually do use in Wyvern. So I do use in Wyvern. Tywin was part of my old cleave. That's why he's missing a piece. Elena's another work in progress. Bazaar, who I occasionally use for arena and for RTA. Not the best Bazaar, of course. And everything else is kind of a work in progress, right? So everything else is just kind of like some other things that I'm working on. Is going to be Elena, Champsy, Broman, even Celine, and Sangelica, and even Ray. There's a lot of units I really want to work on. But right now, the other ones are taking, like Tenebria, and the other ones are taking priority. But all right, that's enough for the units. Let's look at the different content and my hunt teams, because that's the one that people always ask me. What are you using for hunts? So for Wyvern, I use a pretty standard team with Karen, because Karen actually is the one that carries because she has the artifact that applies the bleed. It actually works really well. Furious is on Song of Stars, able to land that target. And Sigrid doesn't have effectiveness, but doesn't need it because the Karen is carrying the effectiveness. And I'm also trying to build my Sigrid for PvP. So this is a team I use. I sometimes will switch my Sigrid for Luna when I'm feeling extra spicy. So I can do both. I can either do Luna or Sigrid, but Sigrid, of course, a little bit more consistent because she applies more debuffs. So this is this one, right? I could switch her for SSB. There's a lot of different units, but this is a team that I actually do run and actually do use. It's a little bit on the slow side. It takes like 1:50. Actually more like 2 minutes, 2 minutes 20 seconds is the standard run for this team. And it has about an 85% win rate. It just basically does my Furious and my Karen miss the debuffs, and then does the Dragon attack the General Purgus or someone else because I don't have enough debuffs, right? So definitely need some work on my Wyvern team. The reason why it's not working as it used to is because I have a Banshee three-man team. So this is actually the team I use for Banshee. I actually do use a 3-man. And recently what I've been doing is just farming fodder while I farm Banshee, right? So I'll slap on a fodder and I'll just run with it. I'll just slap on this fodder and I'm like, all right, let me level up some fodder while I farm Banshee. So it is a Banshee 3-man. It took me so long to get this team to work. It's an 80% consistent rate team because I lose if the Vivian dual attacks or if the Karen misses the decreased defense, right? So there's 2 points of failure, which is not great, but the Banshee runs take 1 minute, right? So 1 minute Banshee with an 80% win rate versus 100% win rate with 4 minutes. I'd much rather have my Banshee one-shot team that can also farm fodder, right? So it's not as consistent, but it is really, really good. So I know people have asked me about there. Golem, I don't do, but when I do need to do Golem, I usually slap on not this team. I usually slap on the Ross and the Ravi. It's really slow. It takes a very long time, and it's not the best. I would not recommend this team. But I don't really farm Golem, and you shouldn't really need to farm Golem for the most part. So yeah, it doesn't matter too much, right? So it's not that big of a deal if you can't farm Golem. You really don't need it. And then lastly, A13, I do use kind of a whale team for A13. So if y'all are wondering what team I use for A13, I don't have it set up because I haven't been farming it recently. But I use Ross, Tene, and Tama. So the Tamarine would be in the back. So I haven't farmed in a while, so that's why the team is not set up yet. But it'd be this team. And what I do essentially is when I'm gonna farm it, I would give my Spectre Tenebria the Lela Violin. So she'll have Yellow Violin, the Ross strips, the Tama strips. The Stenic can hit the extra adds with the S1. The Charon with Alexa's Basket can hit everyone else. I turn off the skills. I leave the skills on for Charon, and the team's pretty fast. It's like 3 to 4 minute runs, so it's not super fast, but it gets the job done, and it's pretty much 100% win rate. I've never seen a lot lose, but I haven't run it in a while, so that's kind of what I use. It works pretty well. Kind of a whale team. You could switch the Spectre T for any other mage, and you could switch the Kayron for any other AoE unit, right? It just happened to be that those units I had built, so that's what I used. And yeah, that's as far as hunts. For Lavi, pretty complicated. For the most part, though, for the normal Lavi, I only use one team, which is the team that is going to get me the most points. So as far as the normal rate, we have this team. So why do I use this team? It just has really high morale. I'm able to clear it all in 3 entries. And it lets me, for the final entry for the Queen and for Secretary Vera, to put any team I want. It's pretty easy content. As long as you have some reforged units, you can just do it. So make sure you just hit the specific morale. I think it's 38 morale. So pretty standard. For the hard rate, this one is a little bit more complicated for people. Because it is going to be harder content, and it will take a lot longer for you to be able to clear it. So this is the team I use for Execution Carcass, Seaside being one of the big units there. For the Vow Arachna and for Secretary Vera, I do use the same team, which is just changing that Seaside for the green Bellona. So pretty easy. For the Jubilee Court, I do change the Stene and the Bellona. I do put my Luna because Luna does not apply debuffs, and I usually will put my Montmorency. So this is the team I use for for Jubilee Court. And then for the Queen, which is one that a lot of people do struggle against, I do put Ross and Charles, and it's just pretty easy. I have made a guide in Raid before, so make sure to check that out to see kind of the in-depth of what you would need to do. But those are my particular teams for that. Pretty easy content for me. Nothing that I really struggle in for that. As far as the Spirit Altars, I don't think that's something you guys want to see. So now let's move over to my PvP teams, so you guys get an idea of what I use for PvP for Guild Wars. So for Guild Wars, pretty standard. My Guild Wars defenses, it's not great, and I do want to upgrade them in the future, but we get pretty good defense successfuls. The first team is something I really got to change because it's not doing too hot, but the second team I'm actually pretty happy with. The first team I'll probably change to like a Crow and like a Stene later on the line. So pretty nice, right? So it's a pretty good team. As far as offense, it very much varies on how I'm feeling that day. I do use but the key units that I use for my Guild Wars are going to be units like Falconeer Clury to deal with those Rylets. I do use a lot of Ruel because Ruel just makes it so much safer and so much easier. And I use a lot of a Tywin for whenever they bring other units that are very, very scary. And when they have a lot of tanks and not a lot of AoE, I do rely a lot on units like Stene. So these units are pretty core, and I do use them almost every single time. And they beat all, like, with some combination, they beat a lot of the teams. Oh, and Emo Haze, of course, if there's an RB, right? So these are kind of core, and then I switch around to Kayron, Ravi, Ravi, depending on what the situation is. So not bad. It's not something I struggle too much to do for Guild Wars, so hopefully that gives you a better idea. Not great for the first one. Second one, really, really solid. And then as far as regular arena, some of the teams I use. So sadly, we got too lazy yesterday, and I did not end up getting champion. But we got a really good defense rate, so I'm happy with it. I can easily come to champion. Again, I usually do get champion. If you guys are like, oh man, this guy's kind of trash. No, I usually do get to champion. I put this defense. I will be changing it once Cerise gets her buff. So it's coming Wednesday. It will be a different defense. But I did use this defense in Challenger and in Champion when I was in Champion. And it did pretty well. It kept me there. Has good success rate, right? So that's what's nice. It's particularly in the... So yeah, you see, I usually make the champion, but the past couple of weeks, you can see my attacks have been non-existent, with the exception of last week, because I tried climbing back, but then I got lazy, and we were basically there, and just we weren't able to do it. But pretty easy, right? So we're getting good defense rates. Nothing bad, not bad. I'm happy with how we're doing, and it's nice, right? So that's that for Arena. And then last but not least, for RTA, this is the one that I actually do use a lot. Can't really show you the teams, but basically it's mostly going to be Kayron, A Tywin, Relo Light, you know, all the broken units. We're pretty far up, I would say. Not the best win rate, not the proudest win rate, but not bad overall. But yeah, that's a nice deep look into my account, into how it looks and what it's like. If you're curious how long it took me to get to this point, I am a day one player. that is a dolphin, but I didn't really seriously start taking the game seriously and didn't start spending till about 6 months ago, right? So nothing crazy, not a whale, not a pleb, so or not a free to play, not a pleb, my bad, not a free to play, so nothing crazy. But yeah, that is all I got for you guys today, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.